What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Long Run Podcast. This is Adam, and I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the entire world, including returning favorites and someone making their podcast debut. Today, we're going to be talking about what could possibly be the greatest video, games to video, whatever you want to call it, video game adaptation, anything of all time, okay? Of all time. Before we can even talk about that, before we can even talk about the amazing thing that was just on Netflix, I got to introduce our guests because we have a great cast of people joining me today. First off is a returning favorite, someone who's been part of the Long Run Podcast for a long time, one of my eternal brothers, and he just graduated from animation school. Make sure you hit him up and congratulate him. It is none other than Vince. How are you doing today, man?
Hi. I have a lot of loans. I'm big chillin'. I'm dying. But it's all good.
Vince, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
I'm just trying to recover from art school.
This is actually Vince's first podcast episode since the 2017 in review episode. So it's been quite a long time, but he's finally made it back. And I'm sure he'll return again because Vince always has certain opinions, especially on animation. But after him, we have someone who's been on many recent podcasts. It is Abby returning. She was last seen on Cobra Kai season 3. Now she works for Wizards of the Coast and is the only person here who actually knows what they're talking about.
That's
How are you doing today,
true.
Abby?
That's not true. Also, many times have we done Cobra Kai many times.
Yeah, we did 3 times. 3 times. It's gonna be 4. Many times.
Well, I didn't go to animation school.
But you did go to
film
writing and film school, so you actually do know what you're talking about.
You do know what
that counts.
Adjacent. We're adjacent.
Yeah, that counts. And last but certainly not least, we have someone making her podcast debut. It is Maddie, aka Macaroni, who's now world famous for multiple different things. Okay, first, her artwork was shown on Critical Role. You should check that out. It's on Twitter. You'll probably find it. She's the community manager of Brace Yourself Games. You might know them for Creeper the Necrodancer, Cadence of Hyrule, all that good stuff. But you might best know them because they just launched a game, which is escaping my mind because I forgot to write it down, but that's okay because I'm sure Maddie will talk about it. How are you doing today, Maddie?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Adam. The game is Industries of Titan.
There we go. That's what it was called.
To plug it. Yeah. I don't have an animation or film background. I'm just here because I watch a lot of anime.
Major.
Well, hold on. I was going to say, you studied writing. Come on.
Okay, but that was a while ago.
Maddie, that stuff never goes away, okay?
That's fair. Fair.
Come on. So I'm really excited for this because Castlevania not only is this series that I'm sure it, when we think about gaming, it's not like Final Fantasy or Mario or Zelda where we first think of it, but it's certainly a classic series. And I'm sure that most people never thought that they would see it, Castlevania on the big screen, or I should say on Netflix in that sense. So before we even talk about the show, and I suppose season 4 by extension, what are all of your own experiences with Castlevania as a video game franchise? Have you played the games before? Are you a fan? That sort of thing.
Haven't played any of them before, but it's one of those franchises that you just know of and you hear about all the time. So the anime was actually my first real exposure to Castlevania.
Word. How about you, Abby?
Yeah, no, it's very fascinating. I played on the NES, like the original, side scroller. I played that one with my dad when I was younger, and then I played Symphony of the Night. Also, classic. But I played it at someone else's house, when you're younger, and we only got through a little bit of the beginning. So, spoiler alert. Not when the castle flips over, but for the beginning part. So, but my memory, I have such a distinct memory of the Dracula. Is it Richter? I'm gonna frick up his name. Richter. My dyslexia does not like it. Blue Belmont and Dracula.
Yes.
What is a man but a miserable pile of secrets?
You got it.
What is a man?
you got it.
A miserable pile of secrets.
Absolutely. And also, speaking of spoilers, by the way, this is a full spoiler review and discussion, like every single one of our reviews. If you're not used to that by now, I don't really know what to tell you. That's always going to be the case. But finally, Vince, man, what's been your background with Castlevania?
I mean, I've only heard it in passing. For the most part, the anime was like my introduction into Castlevania. Like I've only seen a few people like Twitch stream it and like see some playthroughs, but like only bits and bobs of it. For the most part, like the anime is kind of lit, and like I'm very curious now into the lore of Castlevania because it's such a long running series.
Yeah, so we're kind of in the same boat then, Vince.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Castlevania, contrasting, I'm kind of in the middle between everyone. So I never played the classic games. I've always been told to play Symphony of the Night just because it's an absolute classic of the genre as a whole. I really only got started with Castlevania with the Lords of Shadow series, which was kind of its soft reboot during the 360 PS4 kind of era, that little couple of years there. And I really enjoyed those games. They're actually some of my favorite games of all time. Definitely not the best games I've ever played, but I'm always a sucker for Gothic horror. And also, it's very evident that Castlevania is kind of leans into that Catholic faith a little bit, and that certainly always gets me a little bit more interested in it. Yeah, Lords of Shadow I think is an amazing game. Lords of Shadow 2 and the twist that it has of you actually playing as Dracula, I think is an awesome idea. So I was a big fan of Castlevania. I'm also just a sucker for Gothic horror, like I said before. So I was really excited, kind of, when I heard that Castlevania was going to become a TV show on Netflix. Now I was a little nervous because sometimes Netflix, they do these adaptations. I'm not going to name any names. And like Death. I was going to say Death Note, but you already did it before I did. Sometimes they make an attempt, and sometimes they don't knock it out of the park, and it happens. It happens to the best of us. Netflix still makes some great shows. It just so happens that some of them aren't that good, or in the case of Death Note, right? So for all of you, I'm not sure if all of you were like fan or like knew that Castlevania was coming, but I guess in general, what was your experience in learning about Castlevania, the TV show? Did you like seasons 1 through 3, that sort of thing?
I have been very wary of any video game adaptations that have been coming out. I think most of them have fallen a little flat. I don't know what you guys your
right.
experience.
Same
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. You're
World of
absolutely
Warcraft.
Right.
I didn't even see all of the Assassin's Creed stuff. I was like, what other things have even been adapted? I can't remember off the top of my head, but for the most part, they've just been some of them haven't been like straight up bad, but they have been disappointing. So right. I definitely approached this one with just like, we'll see how it goes. We'll see.
Okay. And when you did watch the shows, how'd you feel about them?
I loved them. Yeah. They weren't perfect by any means, but I thought they were super interesting. The animation was gorgeous. The writing and the voice acting was great. So I thought it did exactly what it was supposed to do, which is make people interested in the Castlevania series. And like, I was like, hey, this is awesome. I want to know more about this.
For sure. All right, Vince, how about you? You went to animation school. I'm sure you got some good thoughts to tell us. How you feel about it?
We don't talk about, Dragon Ball Evolution or like Avatar: The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of video game adaptations, and the same thing with the Mortal Kombat series. I think like the only successful one I can think of about like in my head that was a show turned video game turned show was good as like, and this could be like nostalgia for me, like Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
like back in like the 90s and like the 80s, right?
Yeah, I heard the new series is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing that one too. But like, it was interesting to really get down to how things are gonna get made, especially like because it's been so iffy in the industry. We're just like, okay, how many series can we just like, to put it to like better lack of terms, like it's pretty much like whitewash it, right? It's because like it's anime, right? You think from like Japanese culture and like how they make their cartoons and like their animation versus how the Western audience makes their cartoons and animation, right? So going off between the two, it's like you're like grasping straws to be like, it could be good, but I'm highly skeptical, you know. And like honestly, like one of the things that like I praise about Powerhouse Studios, animation studios, is how they pretty much blended this new animation style that's been coming up, which is now the the web gen animator style, which is like all these people who loved anime like coming about and sharing their animation like through Twitter and online YouTube things and like Newgrounds, like now growing up to produce this high quality level animation now in a production in a proper studio and like putting it in the limelight with Netflix. And it's really been interesting and like really cool to see like that pop out in recent, because it's just like um recently like there's a lot of anime being produced, but recently there hasn't been enough animators to cover all of that animation. So it's interesting to see this generation just pop up and like do their thing and then execute it so well. But it also comes down to the interesting side of freelancing versus in studio animation, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like the quality versus the quantity, right? And I think they've done an excellent job in Powerhouse where they have that nice balance.
Powerhouse being the studio that makes Castlevania, of course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you like season 1 and 3? That's what it sounds like. 1 to 3.
No, I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it all.
that's what it sounded like to me. See, this is why I'm so happy that Vince is here, because he can really give the insight of what I'm sure the animators had to go through and kind of like just the studio journey. I know for me, I never heard of this studio prior to Castlevania being made, and I'm so happy for them that it's a success, that they're getting more projects. Like I heard that they're making the new He-Man series by Kevin Smith for Netflix, which I think looks really amazing. I'm really hoping that we get an HD version of the classic He-Man song.
Same.
So yeah, I'm really hoping for that. We'll see. But anyway, Abby, how did you feel about Castlevania season 1 to 3? What did you think about those? Were you hyped for season 4? That kind of thing.
Oh yeah, totally. I have to say though, Vince just gave me such a thought, because I didn't even think about with whitewashing of anime, which is true.
Mhm.
Thank you for pointing that out. But then also that Castlevania canonically takes place in Eastern Europe,
Right.
but it's a Japanese franchise, so that is a really big crossover of two different cultures that are like, that's really neat, especially in the visual style that it then portrays. But for seasons 1 through 3, I was a big fan already when I started hearing about it, just because of the art. I remember the promo art, and I'm a big Alucard stan.
Yeah.
And I saw the art, and I was like, God, it's just so beautiful. So I was very excited already from the get out. But I have to say, though, I was like not turned off, but I love like Adam, very similar sensibilities of like liking gothic romance and like Victorian romance, but not horror. And I was a little, not going to say freaked out, but I do not do blood. I don't do a lot of gore. So I was a little taken aback, right? Yeah, by the first season, because it gets really gritty really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you quickly see enough, and then you kind of build up a tolerance to it.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I loved seasons 1 through 3. I watched them like probably 48 hours after they came out.
I totally feel you. It's also, it probably helps out that it's animated, right? If you saw all the gore and the gruesomeness, in a live action movie a la Saw or something like that, probably be a lot worse, a bit more squeamish. But I'm right there with all of you. I think Castlevania, the first couple seasons were really great. I'd agree with Maddie that it's certainly not perfect. There's definitely some spots that I felt like either animation was a little stiff, or that the writing definitely could have been better. Like I remember we were getting so much character development with like Dracula and all of his kind of quirk in that one season, while the main three are just hanging out in a library for like half the season. It's like, all right, well, clearly some people are getting a bit more development than others. But it's okay. I really did enjoy it, and I was very hyped to see that we were getting a season 4. I actually was surprised that they were going to stop it at season 4. I felt like there's a lot more story to tell, but we'll talk a little bit about that in this review. So we're setting the stage here. Dracula did die, right? And all the characters have kind of gone on their separate ways, right? We have Carmilla and her court. They're all kind of doing their own thing, and she basically just wants to dominate the world. Alucard had a rough season 3. He just wanted to find some love. Did not work out too well. Trevor and Sypha are kind of just going around the countryside trying to stop people from resurrecting Dracula. Isaac is going on this spiritual journey. Hector became like the slave of one of the it turned into something weird. There's a lot of different things kind of going on, right? So I guess in general, for all of you, there's so much that happened in this season. But what do you feel like really stood out to you as someone who really appreciated what was going on, and even though there was so much of it happening at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, like, there was just, like you said, there was just so much going on, and like, it tied it up at the end with like a nice bow on top. But that was like a good thing and a bad thing. So I'm going to start with the bad thing first, where it's just like there was so much character development squeezed into the last season that I was just like, this is a little bit too much and a little bit too much for my brain to even like process. I'd probably have to watch like this either the episode twice or like have to like sit on it in order to really grasp of like what's happening, especially when it like comes to like my favorite, like, I guess, development arc would be between Isaac and Hector, right? They're probably like my two like favorite characters out of the whole series, personally, because like their philosophies and then what they have to struggle through are like justified, but at the same time I'm like, I wish they had more screen time. Like, I'll throw out like Isaac's like monologue at like the very end was like genius. I was like,
So
I want to
good.
sit on this for like ever, right? And then it just boom into Trevor Sypha fighting death, and I'm like, okay, we're into it.
Isaac was the most interesting character for sure in the whole series for me.
Oh,
Abby
Abby doesn't
says
look
no.
like she did. Abby looks like she doesn't agree.
No, not that I
today.
disagree. Isaac is like, oh boy, the ups are really ups and the downs are really downs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Isaac went through it. Okay, he really
Yeah.
went through it. But I guess to go off of what Vince said, and in particular about kind of how everything was condensed or lack thereof, did you all of you kind of feel that way? Did you feel like there was a bit too much in this season and that they didn't quite explore everything they could have, or do you feel like it was well paced and that they ended it very well?
I told you via message, but I think the season's like, it's like so close to being like almost perfect, but it's
Right.
not. Like it's there's like something a smidge that's wrong for me personally, and I think you're right with the timing, because if you compare it with season 3, where it did seem, it was almost like the action in each scene was like had been slowed down, like almost on a YouTube, play it at slow down speed.
Right.
And then this season was almost like at 2x speed. I feel like I had to rewind stuff because I was like, wait, what just happened? So the pacing for me, definitely compared to season 3, which I thought was a lot more laid back, it was a hard adjustment a little bit at first.
Definitely.
Yeah,
What do you think, Maddie?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they did well with how much they wanted to put into the season, but it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. I think the season started getting really good when Trevor and Sypha had that epiphany, basically, that they were just reacting to things all the time and they wanted to be more proactive. I thought once that happened, I was like, all right, here we go. This is going to be interesting now. And so I thought that was a big turning point, at least for them in the series, in some of the pacing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm of the same opinion as all of you. In fact, one of my biggest criticisms of this season is actually it feels like the first half is all exposition. It's like everyone just being like, all right, here's what's going on. Here's how I feel. Yes, this is a lot of telling and not necessarily showing. And then once they get all that out of the way, it's like, all right, I know what y'all came here for. Let's watch the cool stuff kind of thing. And then you get the fight with Carmilla and Isaac, which is incredible. Amazing fight. And we'll talk about that a little bit later for sure. But it felt like there was just so much kind of squeeze. Like, all right, we need to set him up here. We need to set up there. We need to set it. Like, it was like I remember specifically for Isaac, it was like one day he was just like, you know what, like, night creatures, they don't need to be so bad. Like, we can kind of just do whatever. And then someone calls him. It's like, hey, you want to revive Dracula? And he's like, nah, I kind of just want to chill, man. I kind of just want to be here. And then literally like an episode later, it's like, all right, all my homies hate Carmilla. Let's go to war. It was like, wait a second. Wait. We went from like 0 to 100 real quick. Like, we're missing something here. And I felt like that happened a couple of times. Like, Maddie, you pointed out one thing that I really like too, which is that when Trevor and Sypha kind of realized, like, wait a second, we are kind of just reacting here. We need to stop and think about what's actually going on. I thought that was really great. It was weird though, because they're like, all right, let's have a conversation and think about it. And they never show the conversation. We're just like, yeah, they had the conversation in bed, and then they figured it out, kind of thing.
It was an easy conversation, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. So there was a couple of things where I felt like things are set up, but not necessarily quite paid off or even just done their due justice. And there was even a couple of times where I felt like people are just repeating themselves. Like I talked with Abby in DMs. Like, I'm pretty sure Carmilla like repeated herself at least 4 or 5 different times. It was like, yes, it was like, I want to rule all the men, and because they took it from me. Okay, great. It's like, yeah, and I want to take that, and I want to. It's like, okay, like, yes, I get it. It was like for 5 minutes. It was like, I get it, kind of thing. And I think the worst part about it too is that she's just saying it instead of like actually showing like what she had to go through and all this other stuff. Blah 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 blah.
I literally thought it. I think I told you. I literally thought it was an audio mistake.
Yeah.
I was like, huh? But she's like, I make them pay. I will make them pay. I'll make them pay. And I was like, I don't know if this is the audio engineers doing, the audio director, the actress, the writer. I was like, I got an issue with one of you. I don't know.
Yeah. Or all of you.
Or all of you.
I mean, I think that was the one problem with Carmella's character. Indefinitely was like, she was kind of one-dimensional, like even through the finale, and I was kind of disappointed because like she could have like been so much more, especially like you're controlling a whole army and you have three other sisters that like support you, which have other interesting characters, right? And you take over, you're already the leader of a whole country, and I'm like, she could have been built up to like something much more than just like, men, they took everything, and now I'm taking back from men.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess. It was like the whole world is like a diverse group, but okay.
Nah, I totally understand what you're saying there. And the part of me wonders, and we talked about this a little bit, I'm sure the production kind of happened during the pandemic, so I wonder if that somehow impacted either the animation or the writing or something like that. I had heard that it impacted other productions. Like, apparently all of Raya, like the voice actors recorded that through Zoom, which sounds not fun at all. I hope that wasn't the case for this production. But it was still definitely not quite as good as it should be. But I guess in that first half of the season, we've been kind of ragging on it a lot. What were the parts that you did like about it, right? There's lots of things that happened, and too much, like we said before. But I'm sure there was a couple of things that all of you liked. So what stuff stuck out to you?
The Alucard comeback.
Oh, yeah?
Alucard's comeback was like so strong. We're just like, damn, I'm so depressed because my lovers just tried to kill me. I was like, I've been eating and drinking the same wine and fish for every day. Like, the man doesn't take care of himself.
His "oh my god, I'm Trevor Belmont" moment.
Yeah, that was funny. I laughed.
Like, his arc to me was just like the most interesting, but like also I enjoyed his action scenes the most too. Right, coming back and helping out that village, and then finding out his other love interest, which she was cool too.
She didn't try to kill him.
Didn't try to kill him, and she knows how to fight Alucard, which is scary.
Well, Abby, I know how much you love Alucard, so tell us how you kind of felt about him throughout the entire season, kind of thing.
Oh, well, I think out of all the characters, like, honestly, I mean, Castlevania is about Dracula. like at the end of the day. And
right.
Dracula backwards is Alucard. So you know what?
For all you people who didn't realize.
Your fun fact of the day, in case you didn't know. Alucard is just like the heart of the show. Like I feel like Trevor is like they are foils for each other. They're supposed to be, this like duo. But at the end of the day, I think it's about Alucard's story with his family and growing up through that and what happens after it. And I think it is like the Belmont clan versus them for generations. If you look at like the lore of like Castlevania as a big zooming out,
right.
But when you get close to it, when you zoom up, it's this story of family, of a father and a son, and also of identity. Of who am I? Am I supposed to be a vampire? Am I human? I'm both. What does that mean? And he just had a lot of resolution, I think, in the 4th season, which I thought was so lovely. And especially with Greta, like Vince mentioned, like it was which I did not expect at all. Like I almost thought after the 3rd season where he got burned so badly, I thought they were going to be like, nope, no love at all. Nope. And they were going to go the opposite 180. So I'm really glad that they allowed that to happen. Does that make sense? Because I think it was like healthy to see like someone who struggled and now they're going on the up again.
Yeah. How about you, Maddie? How'd you feel about Alucard this season?
I thought he was good. I honestly, he's great to look at. His action scenes are great. I'm a Sypha stan though, through and through. I was there for all of her seasons. Her fights and battles and any scene she was in. So, the way Abby was like, Alucard, I'm here for you. I'm like, Sypha, keep doing what you're doing.
I respect it 100%. Alucard, just to, before we start talking about Sypha, because I'm sure we all have thoughts on Sypha. Alucard, I think all of you have hit the nail on the head. I'm so happy that he found happiness after what happened to him. He deserved that. And in general, I think next to Isaac, they're the most complicated characters in terms of the arc that they have to go through, the evolution that they go through throughout the entire series, right? Vince talked about how Carmela's a little one note kind of thing, right? But Isaac and Alucard both go through various different things that kind of shape them and not only who they are, but what they believe in and what they want out of their own lives, which is not something you'd expect from a Castlevania show, certainly. And that was a really amazing thing to see. I also think that there are a couple of moments with Alucard specifically that kind of just really warm your heart. Like when Greta told him, like, I've seen how you talk to the orphans, blah, blah, and they look up to you as like a father. So I was like, oh, Castlevania, you can't be doing this to me right now. Come on.
I know.
It was just beautiful stuff. Or how he was like all the way up on Dracula's castle and they're all looking up to him kind of thing. And then he like jumps down. It's just like, see, people don't look at you as a monster, Alucard. You're awesome. Come on. It was really, really nice to see him go from that loner to a man of the people, right? Because he was struggling with that, as we talked about before. After, I'm sure that if anyone had two lovers that tried to kill them in their sleep, that they would be pretty traumatized too.
Bro, it wasn't just sleep.
Bro, there was a lot of things that were going on.
G-rated podcast? What's the rating for this podcast?
I mean, we curse all the time, so I don't know if I could call it. I definitely mark it as explicit every single time. But anyway, so I was just happy that he was able to find love again. Not only through his companions in Trevor and Sypha, but also in Greta, and also in just love of community, right?
Community.
I love that he talked about at the end, right? Hey, we should form a new village or whatever, right? And the cornerstones of that village are the Belmont Keep and the Dracula's castle, right? And just like what Abby said, there have been hundreds, maybe thousands of years of war between these two clans, and it all ends in them coming together and forming one unified community. And that's
can I say something that you just made me realize?
Yeah,
so silly. I feel like we should have realized a long time ago. Vlad's main problem, his father's main problem, was with the community and how they treated Lisa, aka killing her. And then Alucard kind of ties up the bow by finding reconciliation with the community that once killed his mother. But beautiful. We love that.
Yes, and I'm sure you'd like this too, Abby. We talk a lot about how this kind of relates to Catholicism and whatnot. Forgiveness and kind of confession is one of those biggest things that are a part of it. So it was cool to see that. But we talked enough about Alucard.
Hold on.
Oh, wait, okay, Maddie, go ahead. I was going to give you the floor for Sypha, so you go
Oh.
ahead and go for Alucard to Sypha. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I thought it was definitely leading towards what Abby was saying, where Alucard was becoming more of like a distrustful shut-in with after the whole incident in season 3. Like it was a very fast turnaround from staking his 2 lovers in front of the palace to let's build a community at this castle again.
Right.
Is my only thing, but yeah, I think I'm very happy with how it ended and how Alucard ended up.
Absolutely. All right, tell us more about your love of Sypha.
I'm speechless right now, honestly. She's just great. I think she had a lot of really cool moments, especially with Trevor. Her being a wizard, I think, just is so much fun to watch with her ice magic. That one scene where they're like surrounded and she like slices them all through the middle with like this ice disc. I was there for it. Overall, I think she's great. Her meltdown after one of their battles, where she just like devolved into nonstop cursing and swearing at Trevor, was amazing. So I overall think that she's just a fantastic character.
Yeah, how Abby and Vince, how'd you all feel about Sypha this season?
I mean, me personally, like Sypha was like the wild card and also like the trump card of like the whole group, and personally the whole show, because like her fight scenes are so intricate and like immaculately done. Like whoever animated her fight scenes throughout the whole show, like
hats off.
Chef's kiss.
Hats off.
So
Chef's kiss. Like the amount of like, it's hard to figure out spatial awareness, especially like when you're animating 2D, right? And you can see the 2D 3D blend in the show, where it's just like they definitely have 3D assets for their layouts. But like also trying to fight multiple enemies, like she's the one who had like 4, 3, like 5 more people like all ganging up on her, while it's just like it's the Belmont and Alucard just like fighting off 2 to 1. I was just like, not that ain't it. Like Sypha got their back and carrying the team on her back. But it's like she's also like really fondly like the voice of reason, which is what I really liked too for like Trevor and Alucard, right? She's the one who like pretty much like, hey, we're in this together because we gotta fight evil, right? Which is like really dope. And like her whole backstory about like the mysterious speakers and like why they're the only ones who can do magic, and then her level up progression too with her own fight scenes, where just like she fights with ice, fire, levels up to like fire magic, lightning magic, and like levels up even more to combining all 3. And I was just like, that's gotta be difficult, right? And it's just like, it just seems like Sypha has no limit compared to like Alucard and Trevor. Which is like really what I enjoyed about her fight scenes and like her character development too. Whereas like she really like ties in, where just like there's no limit with her, and it was like the only person who like grounded her was Trevor, to be like, you wanted an adventure, so it was just like, this is what you get for having an adventure and like stepping out of space and being too ambitious, right? It's like, which is what I really enjoyed about like, that's her one flaw, right? Is being too ambitious, too good-hearted. But the thing is like, it's also reasonable to be that, you know? Someone's got to be it. You know, Trevor's a pessimist. Alucard is just like always just brooding. You know?
Yeah. Someone needs to be there to lift everyone's spirits.
Oh yeah, she does a great job of doing. She's the one who rallies the troops. It's definitely not Trevor or Alucard.
No, you definitely need a voice of reason, and I think. Again, Adam and I have talked about tvtropes.org, where we look at a lot of archetypes of characters, but especially for, I think, with women, with the voice of reason, it can sometimes lean into, like, the nagging mother type, and I never thought she went there, which I respect. So that meant her writing, I feel like, was pretty dynamic. And that, you know what, or the one who's there to tell you not to have fun. She was the voice of reason, but in a way that was, like, I don't know, it just made sense. It was more logical instead of trying to put a hamper on the party. And then it's just also interesting because she's such a legacy figure in the Castlevania series because she appears in so many of the games.
Right.
So it was just cool to see her done with such justice. And I really like how y'all talked about the different visual style and also rules almost of magic and weaponry in this world, because this world is like ours but not like ours. And seeing like, what is a vampire killer, what does the whip look like, or how does that animated versus the magic animated versus Alucard's sword, and how their battle styles are different. And you would think maybe I don't know, I always think with magic it's always like, oh, that's the range attack, or like that's the one. And she was like up there, nitty gritty. So it was just a really cool display of, you know, magic and what that would look like visually.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with what all of you said. One thing that Vince said that also kind of reminded me of something, like, you know, Trevor's out here. I think he was fighting Varney in like the catacombs. He was having trouble, like this one-on-one duel, really struggling hard. Meanwhile, Sypha's in the back, killing every single night creature there. She does the ice, then she does the fire, and then she does the combo attack. She does it up close. She does it from afar. Like she is definitely the carry of the team. So I definitely agree with that. And we've talked a lot about her character, but one thing that I always thought about throughout this season, especially, is her strong, like, moral sense, right? Her sense of justice in a way, right? Or of what is right. I forget what the character's name, but I remember how often she would call out the Royal Guards person, just like, you can't keep on doing this. You need to help these people, kind of thing. Like, what are you doing? You are part of the Royal Guard, blah, blah. And of course, we find out later that they're defending corpses for whatever reason, but I think that's such a good display of character that's shown, right, and not instead of just told, kind of thing. And I was really happy that they gave her that in a season full of just exposition dumps and doing this or doing that, like where people like Lenore like literally just kind of sit there and do nothing and then eventually die. We have someone like Sypha who does a lot of really, really cool stuff, not only in battle but also outside of battle, and I think that was amazing to see. Also, really want to give a big shout out to her voice actress, Alejandra Reynoso. I'm sorry if I didn't say that correctly. I think that she did a great job, and in general, all the cast did a very, very good job with their voice acting. Whoever's the director, casting director, hats off to you as well. Like, this is some really, really good work. So I was really happy to kind of see that. So we've talked about a couple characters that we really like. I have to ask about a character that I was definitely not a fan of, and it has to be Saint Germain, however they said it.
Oh my god!
Listen. With peace and love to Bill Nighy, he's a living legend. He's a living legend. Okay, listen. He was great as Davy Jones. He was great in Love Actually. I love him. Okay, and his performance is good, but the writing. Bill Nighy, yeah. But man, I'm just gonna say it. I despise this character. I loved him in season 3 and kind of where he was going, but then what they did with this character, I was like, come on, guys, we could have came up with something a little bit better than this. But maybe I'm alone in that. How'd y'all feel?
Yo, he was done dirty, dude. he had the most interesting, like, character appearance and like character, I wouldn't say character arcs because his character arc honestly sucked ass, but like he was like one of the most like eccentric characters, right? And like I enjoyed the mysteriousness of like the like alchemist, right? Because he's part of like the alchemy crew of like that century, and like it was cool because he lived so many lives and like has a history with like all these people, kings, queens, right? And then like all hell broke loose, and then he has nothing, right? And then he finds his resolution, in my opinion, in season 2, and I thought it should have just ended there.
Yeah,
I didn't think he needed to be back at all, unless he's like a portal came out and like was supposed to defeat death with Trevor, which would have been sick, right? But like this whole character arc in season 3, I was like, there's literally no reason Saint Germain should be there.
yeah. He was the most confusing character for me as well. I was like, oh, he's good. No, he's bad. No, he's good. No, he's bad. You know. So that was kind of my roller coaster with him and his character.
Mm-hmm. Abby, you look like you have thoughts.
I did not know it was performed by a British icon, but wow. I love him, but wow, I did not even realize that. Yeah, it just was so disappointing, and I guess I get his purpose as an instrument of plot. Does that make sense? I know why
Yes.
they did it for the climax of those like last 3 episodes, why he was there, why they needed someone to be the person to do what he did, aka open the portal, all that jazz. And I also
Right.
love time travelers. I love that.
Yeah.
For some reason, he did not hit. I don't know if I didn't think his love was genuine for his partner. Something about it didn't feel. I don't want to say it felt disingenuous, but it didn't. I didn't feel like, yeah, you got to be back with your love. I was like, don't know if you're there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And it was just like not hard hitting in a way that it needed to be for us to like actually feel for him. And I have to say that I do know that role of the person that they use as a conduit to get Dracula back is almost in every single Castlevania game. So I knew we were going to have someone who's like that, because you have either like a priest or some random man of the village who's like, well, frick you, Belmont, I'm going to bring Dracula back. And he's like, no, my grandfather killed him already. You know what I mean? That's the plot. That's your TLDR. So you have to have someone who's going to do that. So unfortunately, it fell to him.
Yeah. It did feel like maybe his relationship with Trevor and Sypha would have been like what I felt like it should have been strong enough that he'd been like, maybe I'll find another way to do this. I think also just Death masquerading as that alchemist in the weird library was very weird.
Yes.
It was interesting at first. I was like, ooh, who is this? I'm so intrigued. And then it just turned out to be Death manipulating him. Was a little bit underwhelming. So
I felt the same way too, in the sense of like, okay, there's potential here, because right, like first off, the idea of the infinite corridor is very, very cool, right? Because technically, it's as the name would imply, infinite possibilities where you can take the story. I just thought it was so strange that like, the first door he goes to, is like, oh yes, hello, good to meet you. I've never seen you before, and she was like, yes, I know what you need to do. It's like, you sure you want to trust this person? You've never met them before. They claim to be all knowing. You sure you want to do this? Like, and it was just like, yes, I know that you're an alchemist. It was like, oh yes, because you know that means I have to trust you. It's like, okay. And then he decides that he needs to go on this quest, kind of thing. And it was
horror
very
movie
strange.
logic. That's the
very
way.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. And immediate. I didn't suspect that it was Death for a long time, though. Looking back on it, makes a lot of sense. I was still very confused by it. I was just like, okay, we have the potential with this really cool character, but she's just the quest giver for him, kind of thing in that way. I agree with Vince though that it was cool to kind of see the whole alchemy kind of brought into it. But I was very disappointed as well that for me it was always like he should be like the fourth member. Like there's the trio kind of thing, and he's like team member number 4. He came in late, but that doesn't mean that they don't love him, kind of thing. And I was really disappointed where they kind of went with it. I was really hoping that at the end we see like the team up fight, which is beautiful between all three of them. Alucard's all alone, and then suddenly he's like, oh no, I'm not alone, and he has the two behind him. It was just like, oh guys, you know exactly what to do to make me happy. You get it, kind of thing. And there's
power
a part
of friendship.
That, yes, the power of friendship always wins. Thank you, Captain Planet. Wait a second. I wish that Saint Germain was kind of part of that, but it just didn't quite fit in, unfortunately. And I have to say this: whoever was the person who wrote the line about like, "Oh, I can't wait to have sex again," it's like, come on, guys.
Oh no, my God!
It's like, come
Don't get me started on the one-liners.
Bro,
Holy
Vince, go off,
shit,
bro.
dude.
Go off, Vince.
Bro, I do not. There's a finesse, right, with cussing in writing. There is a finesse, right? You can cuss like a sailor for whatever reason. The thing is, like, it makes sense talking to like a person one-on-one, right? Writing it in story, there's like a finesse, right? You can't just be dropping like F-bombs, B-bombs, and just like being like, hey yo, fuck this shit,
Great impression. Totally understand. Go ahead.
Are you referring to
I can't realize like how much like.
Oh wait, Go ahead, Maddie. What was your question?
Oh, I was just asking, are you referring still to Saint Germain or to Death this time?
Kind of both, right?
He's like, think he's talking about the entire series,
and I'm like,
this entire series as a whole. Okay.
Yeah. But keep going, Vince.
The last part too, like you mentioned Death, and I was like, I'm fucking Death, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I was like, was that really necessary to drop on that line? It was like, it felt out of place and out of character.
Okay, I actually have to disagree.
What?
Ooh. Oh my! We got the debate. Okay, Maddie, you have your 5 minutes time to respond. Go ahead.
I definitely don't need 5 minutes. All I'm gonna say is I actually
this man's whole career. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I actually really liked having a really crude Death, because I feel like Death is often portrayed as just like this ominous, mysterious figure who's just there to take your soul. But having Death portrayed as just this cursing, crude, just being who's still super powerful but's gonna cuss you out, I thought that was unique and I thought it was fun. I know this is a contentious point for a lot of people, but I thought it was fun.
Vince, your response?
I mean, like, yeah, I enjoy that kind of side, but the thing is, like, it's the build up to it, right? If Death was just Death himself and was just crude like that, that's fine, right? The fact that Death played Varney and you're just like, who the fuck is this guy?
I have to 100% agree with Vince on this. During the first half of the season, I was like, who is this Varney guy? Why do I?
Yeah.
He's like pathetic. He doesn't even fight his own battles. He doesn't have cool powers. He spends half the time arguing with what's his name. And it's just like, you guys, all right, you know what? Just be a couple. You guys argue like an old married couple as it is. Just do it. Anyway, sorry. Keep going, Vince.
Like, it's exactly that, where I'm just like, see, Varney as, like, if you separate the two characters are just Varney and Death, like, that's fine. You know, like, make your characters crude. The fact that there are two, like, it just made, like, it made me see Death as a weasel. Because that's who Varney was. He was a fucking weasel. Which is what I hate about Varney in the first place of season 3, where I was just like, why? Why do we need this person? Just give me Death.
Give me Death.
Do you have a response to that, Maddie?
I think that's super fair. I think that it was definitely weird that there wasn't any kind of personality change from him trying to be this low-key vampire to all-powerful Death. But I don't know. I still thought it was fun. I think that I think I agree for the most part. The Varney part was weird, but I still see it. You're taken aback a little bit at first. You're like, whoa, this is odd. But then it grows on you. Or it grew on me anyways.
Okay, well, Abby, let's let you be the tiebreaker here, because I know that you have certain feelings on cursing in the show or cussing or whatever people say. So talk a little bit about that. How do you all feel?
I have totally like a big thing where it's like, I think sometimes it being anachronistic, you know, where something's out of time period can be a real positive, and then sometimes I think it's a real negative. I honestly think it depends on the IP, franchise, character. For this, it does make sense for me personally, because it's this gritty, gory, icky world where sometimes, Trevor especially, you're talking about Death, but I was thinking about Trevor, who's this drunk, manly anti-hero who curses and then slugs a beer and then punches a man. Like, that fits, you know, that like that tracks. It sometimes takes me out of the world instead of lets me in, and I do agree with Vince. So I'm just, me personally, my sensibilities, I don't love excessive cursing. It just feels like, I'm like, I just want you to be more eloquent and write what you actually wanted to write instead of a modern day F-bomb. I think, like I said, for certain characters it makes sense. For other characters, I'm like, whoa, you just snapped me out of it.
Right.
But that's kind of my take. Does that make sense?
No, totally. It totally does. And I agree with you that, like, I think it makes sense for the time period. Like, let's be honest, if they wanted to be period accurate, none of us would watch the show because the dialogue would be awful. I'm totally fine with them kind of making a little bit like creative license in that regard. So we've talked a lot about. I think we can all agree that Saint Germain definitely got the short end of the stick. He was like, you know what? We have to choose one character that is just there for the plot. It's you. Like, maybe, I don't know if they did it in like a hat raffle or something like that, but he was the one that was chosen. So at the same time, though, there are other people who also don't have a lot to do or don't really get a lot of development. So I'd love to talk about those characters a little bit. So we talked about Isaac. goes through a lot. Really, he definitely learns a lot about himself, and he becomes his own character. Right? He really is the one who's in charge of his own destiny. On the complete opposite side of the spectrum, we have Hector, who got taken captive by Carmilla and her sisters, kind of thing, and basically just became their slave to make what they called night monsters or night creatures. And then like he basically can't do anything unless he gets permission. But he has this weird relationship with Lenore, and it's like I don't know what you're trying to do here with Hector. And Hector's like, I actually want to revive Dracula, but actually I'm not really sure if I do. Oh, Isaac, you're here. Great. I'm so happy to see you. Yeah, you want to go Carmilla? Good thing I made all of these. It was like, what are we doing with this character? So I'd love to hear how all of you kind of interpreted that, because I was really confused.
He's a hot mess for
He's
sure.
a hot mess. That's the best way to put it. Whenever Hector sees what Lenore would come on, I would physically be like, ooh, like, I know I'm about to cringe. Because, like, something, like, would happen, and I was like, ooh, I, like, don't feel comfy right now.
It was so weirdly flirty all the time. And it's just like, wait, what's going on here?
His objective, and I think about like character study or from theater, it's like his objective changes so rapidly that it sometimes is hard to keep track. The only person he would be looking out for, I would say, if you're looking at a big scope looking out, is himself.
Right.
He's a pretty selfish character. That's what do you want the world to be better for me? But I think it is interesting, especially Hector and Isaac, that they both were kind of these smaller characters in Castlevania Legacy, like in the transmedia, and they blew up their stories, which is really cool, because it was like these little people who weren't super important, maybe a mini boss, maybe like a side character, and then they get these whole arcs to themselves. So I do have to say, I respect that a lot, and I really like that, even if I don't love the direction. Even if it wasn't my personal favorite storyline, I really think that was wise to do to make the world feel willfuller.
No, totally. Vince, you're no stranger to odd relationships, so how do you kind of see how it all played out?
What a segue.
You have a lot of experience with this, so I'm sure that you kind of understood what was going on, right?
I mean, like my boy Hector got done. I don't even say dirty. He kind of just did it to himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was just like, how are you gonna get kidnapped by the sisters, get beaten up, dragged all the way by horse, and be like, man, I'm about to get it on with this vampire chick though, right? And I'm like, yo, are you for real? Bro, you probably don't even have a dick anymore because you got dragged through the country.
Oh my god. This is the best summary of these events I've ever heard.
Like, good TLDR.
Vince, please continue.
It absolutely makes no sense how he would have a relationship with Lenore, especially the way he treated her at season 2 at the end, where I'm just like, it was spicy, but like a bad kind of spicy. Cause I'm like, bro, she's about to like put that ring around your dick and like be like a leash for your chastity belt. Like, I can't. It makes absolutely no sense why Hector is this kind of person, dude.
Oh my god, that scene where he cut off his finger would have been very different.
Oh my god, Maddie.
Oh my god. Alternate timeline.
Like, Hector, I feel like, would be justified if he just didn't do the opposite of what he said. And he's like, my brain is huge, 500 IQ, like, I actually planned this out. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You didn't plan Isaac to fucking come through with his night creatures and be like, I planned it all out. I'm gonna revive Dracula.
Oh my god.
And any other commentary you have for hold on, Vince, let me ask you something about that ending though, right? Where Lenore, she tells where Lenore tells Hector how she truly feels and what she wants. How do you feel about that ending?
I thought, like, thematically, like the way it was boarded and staged, like it was very eloquent and like very beautiful. and like her speech was somewhat justified, but I was just like, it would make more sense if she just lived, right? And just like kind of just carried those sins like Striga and her lover Murata, right?
Yeah, Murata.
Yeah, like it would have made sense if like she just like ran away too, but she's like, you know what, I'm kind of tired. I'm gonna just fade.
Yeah.
Now, Abby, you made a very audible kind of sound when you heard about the ending. So tell us a little bit about how you felt.
I feel like we're ragging on the ending, but there's so many good things, but there were so many things that were like so just like awkward, like just straight up, like I said, cringe. Because like with Lenore, it was like you have this abusive mommy vampire that like everyone was like, oh, I love her, and I was like, let's decode why you love her. Oh, you think she's pretty. Okay. Do you actually like her character? No, she's kind of shitty. But it was like, that was frustrating to me already.
Right.
But then, like, especially with the ending, it felt so lackluster. It was like, if I look up anticlimactic, it would be like that death scene, which I know they wanted it to be beautiful. And like, I'm fading after this life of like eternalness of being a vampire. It didn't do that at all for me. It just felt like they both did not have anything else to do with each other, which I guess makes sense. But then I would say, like that said, she should live and go somewhere else, like just part in like a dramatic way instead of that. That to me, it felt anticlimactic, and I was not to say bored, but I was a little bored by her.
I mean, let's be honest. They all kind of seem kind of bored. The Carmilla's dead. What does Hector do? He's like, you know what? I'm just gonna read some books. And like, there's nothing wrong with reading some books. With peace and love to everyone who loves books. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But it was just like, man, don't you want to like explore like Isaac did, figure out who you are, and go outside a little bit? No, I'm just gonna stay in the library. It's like, okay, well, there's nothing interesting happening here. And I kind of felt like that was what happened with Lenore. It was just like, half of what would happen is she'd go talk to Carmilla, go over there like, hey, Carmilla, what's the plan? Carmilla would talk about how much she hates men and how she wants to take over the world. Huh, okay. Then she'd go back over to Hector. Hey, Hector, did you know Carmilla said this? And it was just like, what are we doing? Like, there's got to be something here. And it felt like either they had no idea what to do with the character, but I know for me, I would have loved to, because they do touch on a little bit how she does have this identity crisis where she's like, well, I've always been the negotiator, the one who's good with words in our group of sisters, right? That's my role. That's what I've always known, kind of thing. But now, like, we're just in conquest mode, so there's not really much for me to do. And I would have loved for her to kind of go through the evolution that Isaac did, where he was just like, I actually don't know what I am or who I am anymore, and I want to figure out what I want. And I feel like that would have been great for Lenore to do either through the season or in some sort of future season where she could figure that out and be like, for so long, I had Carmilla and my sisters give me a purpose. And similar to what happened with Marana and Striga, she could decide on her own, like, I want to have my own purpose. I want to do this or I want to do that. Instead of just like, you know what, life's been really good. This, however long, 900 years has been great, but I'm going to go check out the sun for the first time. Kind of thing.
To build off of that, Adam, I just had a thought, which I completely agree with, which is what you said is, what do I look like as the role / negotiator in a different world as a vampire, which they didn't explore at all. And it feels like other people kind of had that chance to, and she didn't. It was defeat instead of, it was like lack of agency completely.
Right.
Like, you nailed it, because it's like, what would negotiator look like?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to bring up too about Lenore, is basically everything you just said, Adam. There's just so much missed potential. I actually really liked her scene where she's just like, peace out. But I just think it was too early for that.
Yeah. It's like in a vacuum, that scene is actually gorgeous. Kind of like what Vince was saying. It's storyboarded very well. It's animated kind of thing. It's just like what leads up to it. It's not earned sort of thing. I think that's probably what it feels like.
She's like, damn, this is what all the hype's about. Not worth.
Definitely just got Infinity Ward, clearly. So we've talked a lot about certain other characters, but I think we should talk about the general story as a whole, right? So much of the season is about trying to stop Dracula from being revived, but also trying to figure out who's actually behind all this. And through that, we find out a couple of things. One was the royal guard, and also that there's the dead kings, but we also find out about Saint Germain and kind of his motivations, and also we find out about how he's helping people, and that kind of brings Alucard in. How did you all feel? Like, we talk a lot about character work, but for the overall plot and story, did you all feel like that was strong? Did you feel like that was a really big part of why you liked the season? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I mean, it was like an interesting feel for like the whole plot is, the apex predator versus the humans, right? Which is like really weird because like they've emphasized that a lot in season 3, but not in the previous seasons, right? That they're like, we'll call them like cattle. That was like the whole thing of Carmella, right? Before, mass extinction for the human race, right? And it's like, it's interesting because like I wish they played a little bit more on like the apex predator, right, than just simplify the vampires as like you guys are just taking everything and like not giving everything back or anything back, where it's just like, it just seems like a lot of people are bored and like take things for granted, which is why I kind of wanted a little bit more story on like Striga and Morana's like character development, which is actually really more, I found a lot more interesting than like Carmella's like screen time with like Lenore too, trying to like deep dive into that, because like they're like, yeah, like Striga and Morana are like literally the most justified couple like the whole show, where I'm just like, yeah, you keep fighting and you're just gonna keep pushing, and I'm just like, the world's fucking huge, like that's gonna be hard. And it's just like there's only like so much, and it's just like, especially like emphasis on this on like Striga's part where she's like the whole Daywalker, armor, and like that whole fight scene where she's like, she explains to Miranda, like they're just farmers. I was like, she was just fighting farmers. They weren't even armies. It was just people who were just frustrated with like being like on the edge the whole time. And I was just like, that hit deep, especially like after that whole fight scene. Oh my god, we'll touch upon that.
We'll talk about it. Don't worry.
We'll touch upon that later. But like, her whole thing with like the overall arcing stuff was just like, yeah, like the whole vampire assets are just like, the apex predator. How far can they push the human race? But the thing is, like, it just felt super contained within Europe, right? And it's just like, I kind of wish like it was a little bit more bigger in scope, like what they did with season 2 with Dracula's court, right? So that ties into like, what's his court? Why does it involve death? And like, who are these other international vampires? Which is really cool, right? Like, what are they doing, right? But we don't really get touched upon that, which I'm kind of sad about. Where it's like, I just wanted a little deeper aspect of like how vampires are like, these creatures that like seem like they're hidden, but not really. They're just out in the open, just killing people left and right, until like Vlad just said like, okay, let's just release hell upon the world.
Yeah. I agree with you that like that was one of the moments too where they have that conversation where it really kind of takes you out, kind of like what you were saying. There are a couple of moments in the season, like Isaac's monologue and other things, were just like, damn, like you guys are really trying to say something here. And granted, it's literal in the sense that they're having a conversation instead of showing it, but that doesn't mean that it's like any worse or anything of that sort. I know I really liked how they had the commentary on war, because like, let's be honest, they could have dragged us out for like 7 seasons or whatever and just been like, yes, this is the war, I mean, more of the war and another part of the war kind of thing. It could have gone on and on and on and blah blah. And I like that not only was it a reflection of what they were trying to accomplish, but I like how they tied it into their own relationship, right? Like it was just like, is this what you want to do? Like, I want to be with you, but I'm not sure this is actually what's best for us, kind of thing. And in stark contrast to what happened with Lenore, I was so happy to see them make their own decision about what they want to do and what they felt like their own destiny was. Like they kind of walk up, right, and they see that the castle's under attack, and they're like, yeah, we could go to war, just like, or we could just go turn around and do what we really want to do instead of always being told what to do. And I thought that was very, very cool. In fact, I almost wish that there was a bit more of them, just because I felt like that relationship definitely had a lot more to be explored. And even just the entire idea of a vampire war, and what that looks like from the vampire perspective, is very interesting. So I'm glad you pointed that out, Vince. Maddie or Abby, did you have any feelings or things you wanted to say about them?
No, wait.
No.
I was just gonna say this. You're talking kind of like overall plot, and you talked a little bit about like Strika.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like very contained. Like I could almost see the scripts of like or the outline of like, these 4 episodes we're dealing with Carmilla. We're putting her to rest. These 4 episodes we're dealing with death and Dracula. Like it seems very very extremely structured, which sometimes is good and sometimes it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What were you going to say, Maddie?
I don't have too much to add on Striga and Morana either. I think they were great characters, and I agree. I wish we kind of saw more of them and the effect that one fighting these endless wars against just basically common people, and then after Carmilla's death as well. It would have been great to see that. But, we didn't. And I don't fault them for that because they only have so much airtime.
Sure. Animation is expensive. Yeah. Let's not kill the animators, that kind of thing.
Yeah. But was your original question, what did we think of the overall
the overall like kind of story and plot? Because we talk a lot about characters, right? And what the characters are trying to do. But there's obviously an overall story and kind of plot structure kind of going on here. How did you all feel about it? Was that something that you felt like was compelling and a reason why you wanted to watch the show? That sort of thing.
Oh, no, definitely not. I'm gonna be honest about that. The plot, the overarching plot is pretty basic, and it's just a lot of like gradually scaling up the enemies after Dracula's death until you get to actual death. But I view the plot as more of like a vehicle to show really awesome moments in animation, and also the characters are great, so they carry a lot of it too. But for me, I definitely watched it for all the different fight scenes. Carmilla's fight, which we're going to touch on later.
We will. Don't worry. We will.
Was hands down the best moment in all 4 seasons for me.
Wow. That's quite the statement. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear more when we talk about that specific fight. How about you, Abby? Was there anything plot or story-wise that really grabbed you, or are you kind of on Maddie's boat here?
I'm on Maddie's boat with the Carmilla fight. It did kind of almost stop me in a way. It was so epic, which is why I say it almost felt like an anime tournament in my head, because I was like, so we've reached the end of tournament 1. Yeah. That was definitely those like that contained arc with Carmilla, but it was so epic that I was like, what's going to happen now? Mm-hmm. And then you find out how can you top this? And then you get to the ending, which is like anime levels of extra, which sometimes feels appropriate and again sometimes does not, or is unbelievable in ways that you would not even know were possible. So I mean, I understood. I agree again with Mads, where again plot is conduit for character and situation.
I definitely agree with all of you. This is certainly a character-driven show, not like a plot and story-wise. I agree with Vince in the sense that like a lot of the world building is actually very, very cool, and I'd love to learn more. But like, the plot is like kill Dracula or stop Dracula from being revived, kind of thing. It's not all that interesting in terms of like when you just think about it that way. So we'll get to scenes, but there is one character we have not touched on, and is one of the big 3. It is Trevor. Trevor. This season definitely had a couple of things to do, I'll say. And he certainly had one of the more important moments, especially towards the end. But I don't think he got quite as much love maybe as some of the other characters. But how did you all feel? Did you feel like that's true? Or maybe did you look at it a different way for Trevor and what he's gone through, not only through this season, but also kind of like all that stuff leading up to it?
I think Trevor was just an overall consistently good character. I think he gets a little less love because his arc almost basically completed in the first few seasons, where he turned belligerent, drunk, pessimist, like just hates his life in the world kind of person, to like caring, loving, like I don't know, whatever other adjectives you can use to describe him towards the end because of Sypha. So like he basically relearned to love. in all of that. So I think that's probably why he gets less love in this season. He obviously has his really big moment at the end, but I have nothing bad to say about Trevor, honestly.
Wait, I completely agree. I was gonna say I feel like it makes perfect sense compared to like how much attention he did get, like compared to the first season, which it was the Trevor show, which makes sense because he's the protag and the hero. And to this, we've now seen more of our ensemble and cast of characters, but he's still the lead. He knows what he needs to do. When he knows his lines, he hits his marks. Like, I have no complaints, and he's likable.
Yeah. How about you, Vince? Trevor, what you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, like, I pretty much agree with like the rest of you. It's just like Trevor is just a really good character, but like you really know who he is like after season 1. The rest need their other character arcs, right? If I was to break it down, be like season 2 was all about Alucard, right? And a little bit of part 1 of like season 3 was a little bit of like Alucard still, right? And like Sypha definitely again showed her true character and like why she's there. Like at the end of and like the sprinkle. But at the same time, like it's Sypha, she's cool, right? Again, she brings the whole team together, right? So it's like I agree with like the rest of you. I was like Trevor already got his show like season 1, right? He really knows what he's gonna do. He really knows how he's gonna do it. He just needs to figure out just like how do I stop these people from reviving Dracula?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's so funny when you're like, there's one character we haven't talked about. It's Trevor. I was like, what? We did it?
Yeah. It's so crazy to think about because you're absolutely right. Like kind of thing where Trevor, obviously he's the protag, he's the hero, but so much of it has already been spoken about him that there's almost not much to say. But at the same time, there is so much, right? I think Trevor, it's so easy to forget that like he's the last of his clan and like imagine kind of like it's kind of like the Avatar kind of effect, which is like damn, like this dude has the weight of the world on his shoulders. Like, listen, man, you need to stop the world from dying because of Dracula. All right, we've been trained your entire life for this sole purpose. You can't do anything else, kind of thing. This is what you do, kind of thing. And I'm sure most people become a drunk that way when that's put on their shoulders, right? But I am glad, like all of you said, right? It's because of his friendship with Sypha as well as Alucard that kind of changes him, right? And I still think about that first fight too when they first revived Alucard, right? Between Trevor and Alucard and how much of like that's where they started, right? But now look, started from the bottom. Now we're here, kind of thing. They've really changed for the better, both of them, right? They both have an impact on each other.
My homie was rising from coffins, and now we're here.
People exactly, like babies. Exactly. Listen, I could hang out in the castle. I could hang out in the hole. I could hang out in the village. Like, listen, we in paradise over here.
So many options all of a sudden. Whoa.
Yeah, it's amazing. How did you all feel about the fake out death at the end? Were you like, come on? Or was it like, listen, let's just make things happy. Like, let's be wholesome. How'd you all feel?
The latter, I think. I was like so sad that he was gone like that. Mm-hmm. That when he came back, I was like, you know what? This is fine. This is good. It was a little bit cheesy, and you're like, wait, but how still?
Right.
But also, I was willing to go with it for Sypha's happiness.
Yes.
Abby's making a lot of hand gestures.
No, I'm like a conductor right now. But like, no, I agree. The logic was a little squirrely, and sometimes you're like, wait, how did? And I was like, you know what? Sometimes I would get mad at that, but in this instance, you're just so sad. The timing, I think, actually for that was pretty right.
Yes.
Because you're so sad. And she's going to have to raise the baby alone. And then, oh my gosh, I missed you. And then the timing just was like, okay. It felt good. And I was like, oh. And it gave me the warm and fuzzies. It did.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Vince? I know sometimes I know sometimes you're more critical than me with these things.
I mean, like, I didn't mind it. To be honest, like I thought I was just like, yeah, everyone in this show deserves their happy ending after what the hell they just gone through, Like Trevor literally survived to tell the tale of like I just killed death.
Right. Right.
Like I'm going to be very curious in the future of how they're going to spin that off with next series, where I'm just like, okay, so the legendary Belmont killed death. right? It's also it was kind of weird how they set it up too, right? It's like the last cut we saw was Saint Germain Twitch, and then it just cut to the flash of like um Trevor just killing Death, and I was just like, that's such a quick cut, no one's gonna notice, and they're all gonna be confused. And I was just like, lo and behold, everyone, at least what I saw on Twitter, like everyone was just like, I don't know how this happened, but okay.
I accept it. Yeah.
I accept it. You know, everyone deserves their due.
Yeah. I was honestly mainly confused why Sypha and Alucard let Trevor fight Death on his own.
Oh yes. I remember you mentioning this.
Yeah.
It just that didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, both of you can fly.
Yeah.
Trevor's the only one who can't. He's probably the weakest out of all of you.
It's true.
Like,
Yeah.
a little help maybe.
Yeah, it was like, it was definitely one of those things where it was like, you know what, like, that's where I was like, it's based on a video game. Maybe I shouldn't think that hard, but it definitely was one of those moments where there were so many things that happened at the end. I was like, all right, well, I'll let it slide, I guess. Like, it was just like, oh wow, I'm so glad that Trevor was just so happened to find all these little things that just so happened to turn into this one dagger that just so happened to be the thing he needs to use to kill Death. How convenient, you know. Or like, it just so happens that both Alucard and Sypha, who both have the ability to fly, somehow cannot reach him and help him. It's like, it's like, whatever, you know.
Like,
I
Trevor,
was at that point.
Sorry.
No, that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
Trevor still could have had his like fake out death moment if they helped. Maybe it was like an animation budget kind of thing, but I don't know.
As in thinking about the animator mind, I'm like, I just want to do a 1-on-1 for the finale.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to animate a 3-on-1.
Yeah.
Mano a mano was
definitely
so
special.
Good. It would have been really special if there was that, but we also got the team. It was like the trio against like the rest of the crew kind of thing. Besides Death, kind of, it was like just incredible. You know, we've been talking a lot about all the cool stuff like character, blah blah, but let's actually talk about the real stuff, which is the action scenes and just scenes in general that we feel like really stuck out. So, Vince, I'll start with you as someone who actually went to animation school and knows what they're talking about. What was the scene? What were the scene or scenes that really stood out to you, whether it be animation wise or just from a story perspective, action, choreography, you know, whatever? Tell us how you see it.
Well, I really enjoyed what Maddie enjoyed was the Carmela versus Isaac scene, which is, you can definitely tell it was done by none other than Spencer Wan. And the thing is about Spencer Wan, this legendary animator who's literally about to be like the Yutaka Nakamura of like the Americas right now, because like his animation style of depth, space, and speed of animation is so nutty, where I'm just like, a lot of us can't just like comprehend. I'm just like, that's so impactful, that's so nuts, and like, how does this one man do it, right? Because like, he's also done the effects for Sypha whenever she goes all out, right? And like, everyone fades away. You can tell him that he's also done the Trevor versus Death, the final scenes, right? Again, like that his spatial awareness of like his layouts and what he wants is like amazing. You can tell that too, especially when you know that he solo animated the opening for season 1. Last minute was just like up to the director, was just like, hey, I have this opening, check it out. And it was literally just like, it was all that black ink transforming into like the whirling whoosh of fire, and it's just like, it's so nutty, right? And it's amazing. But I will have to say, like, I cut it back to what I said in the beginning, which is like freelance versus in studio animation work, and you can tell like some animators are like not there yet, where it felt stiff at some points and like off model. And like, it was really weird and jarring, because I was just like, that could have used like in betweens, right? But like, you could tell like they used like 4s and 6s, which is a really weird way of animating things, right? Because like, we kind of use that to like cut loose on like some timing, especially like weight and this like how fast things are going, and it's just like just limiting ourselves.
Can you explain a little bit what 4s and 6s are for
yes,
me and for anyone else who
Professor Vince, please explain.
Oh, okay. Sorry, this is just like nerdy animation
Vince,
side.
No, I'm here
listen
for
to
it.
me.
I love it.
Vince, listen to me. There's nothing to be sorry about. Okay, I want to hear it too. Go ahead.
So like we as animators, kind of animate things how we're done in the West. Here in the West, we're like twos, right? That's Disney style, right? So like Disney does everything on twos. Everything's smooth. It feels alive, right? Everything feels natural, right? So imagine like Renaissance Disney, right? Those are all done in twos. Nothing is cut corners except for a few things, right? If like things are fast moving, right? That's when you like start to use smears and then you start to cut corners, right? So how we cut corners is like um, elongating some frames. So right, um, elongating the frames of just like fours and sixes. So we work on even numbers on how we animate. So what fours and sixes do, right? And like again, sixes are like weird. Like you don't see it often, but like it's also one of those things where you can't see it too much. Whereas like you see in eights, where it's just like you see like an 8 count of like a still frame, right? Compared to like twos that can be broken down into a smoother frame, right? So you just see this still of just this rather than just like this, right? If that's broken down in twos, right? I'm like showing them in camera, so it's hard to explain in audio. Where it's just like you see like one frame of a ball going from one side to the other, right? And you just see that one frame, and you see that breakdown, which is the middle part. This is hard to explain in audio.
So hold on. I'll try and help you out here. So if we
Yeah.
talk about what a 2 is, right? Like give an example of what a 2 is, and then a 4, and then a 6. You don't have to do an 8 if you
So
don't.
are we talking like about frames
Yeah,
right now?
yeah.
or
Is
This
it
like-
like
is the
this is the
frame count.
frames per second kind of
see.
thing, right?
Gotcha,
Which
gotcha.
is usually 24, right? So how explain how the 2s fit in that context of frames per second.
Right. So like let's say you have a pose and like how that lasts is in 8, right? So let's say from one pose A to B is from how you get to one position to the other position, right? You need another drawing for that. So you'll split it up. So that's now divided into 4s, right?
Okay.
So now you have the breakdown. That's called the breakdown into how to get into position B from A, right? And you can see that real quick, right? The thing is, it's still not smooth enough, right? Because we need to trick that eye into being like, okay, this is how we get into A to B smoothly, right? So we'll break it down even more into 2s, right?
Okay.
Right. So the reason why I say like 6s is awkward is because when you leave out that space for that extra timing, it feels off, right? I can't really explain it to you because like it's just how our eye feels that people just know like that's not how people move,
Right.
right?
Yeah, no, I think I get it.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So it's just like we need to trick the eye to be like, this is how people move, right? It's even more hard when it's just like we need to check how do people move and on model, right? And like there are some moments in Castlevania where it's like it felt off model. I will say like I'll call out like a lot of the hair.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you'll see like um just a huge example was Carmela versus Isaac, where it's just like her hair just like kind of flips one side to the other, where it's like could have used a little bit more follow through, where
Right.
it's just like it could have been broken down a little bit more, and like the shapes could have been a lot more clear rather than like spiky
Mhm.
hair, which is what I saw, and I was just like, hair doesn't flow like that. But this is just like my eye, right? This is
Right.
like I'm just trained to be like it. I don't know, like normal people would be like, okay, that's really cool, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, especially in like subtle character acting moments, which is what felt really off about some of Powerhouse's animation, was the subtle character acting moments where like it felt really stiff, right? Only
Right.
the mouth was moving, right? Only the shoulder was moving, where it's just like
Yeah.
that whole body could have shifted a little bit more, you know. But yeah, other than that, the fight scenes are incredible.
But before we move on to other fight scenes, first off, hats off to you, dude. It's really hard to explain animation like that, especially over audio to the people who will be listening. So good stuff right there. But I do want to follow up on something that you said, right? Where you said most people probably wouldn't notice that thing. But Abby and Maddie, how did you feel about the animation? Did you notice what Vince said, where there's a bit stiffness, or you felt like some things didn't quite look right?
In the Carmilla fight or in general?
Just in general.
Yeah, there's definitely moments where you just know, as Vince was saying, that things are a little off. I
Right.
think people in general are good about telling when something isn't right. They'll
Mm.
know, they won't know what exactly is wrong, but they'll be like, that's not right. And I
Mhm.
think there's definitely moments where you get that. And I think even in the Carmilla fight, you're right. There are definitely places where you can see that there probably could be a little more, like more frames in certain shots. But yeah, overall, I was like, this whole scene is amazing for just like a Netflix TV show, right?
Right. How about you, Abby?
I thought it was amazing. It all went over my head. I love so much about it. My mind is blown. So much to learn. Such a neat medium. So
Yeah.
much innate and intricate work done. I have so much respect for people who animate.
Totally.
No, it all went over my head. My favorite animation, though, just on looks, was the fight with the three of them towards the end when they're going
Yes.
into the castle.
Mhm.
I just pulled it up on YouTube just so I could refresh
I
my
could
mind
see it in your
again.
glasses.
Yeah.
No, but I forget how cool it is, and I remember why I like it because it feels like a video game.
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say. That is one of those moments where you're like, "Oh my god, they nailed it!" And that's
Right.
what I talk about. Where like I don't want to say I've been harping on stuff, but I feel like I've been like, "That's not right." But that's one of those moments that they nail it out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
Because it is epic. It feels like when you hit a combo and you have multiple characters doing the right thing on a boss, like that feeling is simulated while watching, which I know must be hard to do. And the way that the camera
Yes.
moves 360, you got people going underneath, you got people on top, you have, and I was also going to say abilities that the characters do in games showing up within the fights, and it's beautiful. So that was probably my favorite. I just remember thinking that scene because it's even Alucard turning into bats, which he doesn't really do normally, but he does in that fight to get out, which makes sense. If you're stuck and you have that power, you would do it. So it was logical also in its fighting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're totally understandable. I'm so glad you pointed that out, and we've all kind of been touching on it. I think the animation is great. Just to throw that out there. Of course, peace and love to the animators. Not trying to talk crap or anything like that, but I do agree with Vince and kind of what we all said. There are times where it was a little bit weird. Like I know one shot that at least my memory is telling me is like I remember Trevor. I think he had a whip or a Morning Star, and like he tried to hit someone. I was like, dude, you don't even look like you're hitting hard with that thing. Like it looks like you're kind of just like, eh. Like it wasn't sold the weight of it. And there was another time too where I think Trevor fell and like it looked like he fell on a mattress instead of like fell from like 2 stories kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of about impact not being sold. But overall, I still think the animation's amazing. And kind of like what Abby was touching on before, I think what really impressed me, especially with just action scenes, is you can tell they really storyboarded this because it's so hard to kind of animate something like that, especially with all the dynamic shots where the camera's moving, right? And not only that, but every single time as the camera's moving, right, you're having the characters still do something, right, that's staying in frame, that's still shot very well. Because listen, we've all watched those action movies, right, where like, oh man, I can't wait to watch this action scene. It's just it's just shaky cam everywhere, right? And I'm so glad that they really backed up and kind of let you see everything in all of its glory, right? Because kind of like what Abby said, like for the fans especially, they have those memories of just whipping every single monster they see, using all the cool powers. For me, it was just like, all right, now we're going full anime, and I'm totally for it. Listen, I get it. I was really happy with that. But I think the Isaac and Carmilla fight is the best overall in terms of like kind of like what Abby said. It almost felt like it was the finale, right? Because of the way the stakes were and also the way it was set up. So I definitely really really like that battle. How did you all feel though about kind of like the battle that was like the vampire assault on the castle? Did you feel like that was anything worthy of note, or do you kind of just thought it was kind of like whatever, one of the lesser battles kind of thing?
Wait, is this in season 1?
Season 4. So this is when they're trying to get into the castle, right? To drop off the I forget the term they use for the alchemist body that's half male, half
The
female.
MacGuffin.
Yeah. Yes. You're right. The MacGuffin. They're trying to get the MacGuffin inside to revive Dracula, kind of thing.
Honestly, I'm having some trouble trying to remember what any. There wasn't really any memorable fighting scenes there for me.
For me, all I really remember is the giant creature thing that like breathed fire, that was like that didn't resemble anything. It wasn't like a rhino. It was just something kind of thing. And the other thing that I remember, and I have to bring this up, is like, as they're dying, right? Because the whole idea behind the whole resurrection thing is, as people are dying, the souls are getting like dragged into the castle, and that's what leads to the resurrection. Blah blah blah. And somehow no one notices all these giant red lights going to the castle. Not even Alucard's like, I wonder why there's so many things going. Like, no one's like, yo, Alucard, like, is that just part of the show? Like, does that happen often? Kind of. No one said that. No one's noticing the glowing red orbs. That definitely did bother me. But I think that's like another one of those things, kind of like what we were saying before. But it's like, Sypha and Alucard, you guys can fly. You can help him. He doesn't have to do it alone. Yeah. It was probably one of those things.
I was like, maybe this is just a visual thing so that we, the viewer, know that something's happening. And then they commented on it later. And I was like, wait a second.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, were there any other scenes that really stuck out to you? We've talked about Isaac versus Carmilla. We've talked about the final fight a little bit. We've talked a lot about the lead up to the final fight with Death. Any other scenes that really you want to touch on and kind of highlight?
Yeah, I really liked the scene where the vampires invaded the underground, like I guess the tomb
catacombs
area,
kind of
the catacombs.
Yeah.
Catacombs.
Yeah.
I thought that was really neat. And then there's like this one scene in particular where Varney steps over water, running water, or holy water, one of those things.
Yeah, it was holy water. At least it's implied.
Yeah, and I thought like that was really great foreshadowing. I remember being like, "What? He's not supposed to be able to do that."
Mm-hmm.
So that really stuck out in my mind as well. But overall, I thought that that fight scene was really cool too. And Sypha had some great moments. And I think there's a lot of those cool, like very heavy black animation scenes with Sypha when she goes all out that Vince you were mentioning.
Yes.
I thought those were super cool.
Yeah. One thing that we haven't touched on, but I'm sure we will, I think the art direction of the show is incredible. Like the amount of, I'm sure the time that went into getting the look of it right, the amount of different colors they kind of put in, because for a very dark and brooding show, it's actually pretty colorful, all things. I mean, we're not talking like neon back to the 80s kind of thing, but it's still very, very colorful. And I also think there's a very, very good variety in terms of when they choose what color kind of thing. So listen, I'm a buy the art book. That's all I'm saying. But how did you all feel about the scene that Maddie just talked about, the battle in the catacombs? Vince?
It was the battle of the catacombs was probably one of my top 5 favorites of the whole show.
Sure.
Again, it's just Sypha just kicking ass. I didn't mind Trevor. He was just kind of just there with the Russian dude.
He was trying to find parts for that dagger.
Yeah. He was like he's struggling with the one-on-one. He was just like, wait, do I have this weapon? No, I don't have a whip anymore. Don't have the Morning Star, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he was just like, and the Russian vampire is like, I'm fucking Russian, dude. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, basically. I bet. I was just like, that's cool too, I guess. Right? And then like, again, it's just what I enjoyed the most is Sypha, but it actually goes on towards the fight scenes with I forget what that lady who looks like Bangalore.
The lady who looks like Bangalore.
Yeah, from Apex Legends.
I don't play Apex.
The night, the head of the night of the.
Yeah.
Her.
I forgot what her name was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Because she was such a damn forgettable character.
Right.
Like I liked her. I liked her fighting style. I like how like what they do with her, or like any character that they introduce, right? That's like has somewhat significance, has like a cool like fighting style. Like Alucard's love interest has like a hammer and a sword, and I was just like, that's so unique, that's so cool, right? Hers was like dual daggers, and I was like, that's so cool, right? And then she suddenly just sacrifices herself for no reason. I was like,
I felt like the whole plot with the whole like king and queen actually being dead and her being the royal guard, I felt like all that was kind of an afterthought. Like it didn't really make a lot of sense.
That whole thing did not make sense. When like, they like stopped in Wallachia, and I was just like, why? Like,
but the fight though, Maddie's right. But the fight though,
the fight though.
Yeah. So I know there's two more scenes that I want to touch on before we start wrapping into some of the technical stuff and wrap up the review. So we have to talk about the Striga Berserk tribute. I just want to, first off, rest in peace, Miura. Listen, rest in peace to the living legend. Pour one out for the boy, for the man, the legend. So I thought this was really good because it not only kind of highlighted the relationship between both of them, but also like we were saying before, it kind of showed like this is the moment where she realized, oh, I'm not fighting warriors, I'm fighting like farmers who actually have no idea what they're doing, sort of thing. But I do think it was animated so well, and I hope that Miura saw it before he died, because goddamn, I'm sure he would be very, very proud. But how did you feel about it, Vince? I know you had mentioned it before specifically, so go off, man.
Bro, I wish I was Striga's sword.
Oh, we're going there. Okay,
bro. The way I love I love the homage that like people say it's like it's Berserk, but also it's just like it has that lovely sprinkle of Dark Souls, right? Where she reminds me so much of the Abyss Walkers and like from like Dark Souls 3 and Artorias. Oh my god, Artorias was such a good fight too in Dark Souls 1. Where it's like it's so inspirational and also like kind of levels out like you know the inspiration that like dark fantasy goes into, right? Especially with Mira like steam heading that, and like it was really cool to see that whole fight scene because like it showed the power of Striga, where it's just like who is this indomitable force who cannot be stopped, right? Especially like it just kept going up and up and up and up. You thought it was gonna go even higher and drop down at some point. And it's like it just ends. And I was just like, that's perfect to like show intimidation and like power of just like what vampires are capable of, especially with like that amazing design of the Daywalker armor.
The Daywalker armor,
bro.
So cool.
I've never been so intimidated in my life than like seeing the silhouette and her just wielding that big ass sword in their back, and I was just like, yes, this is perfect.
for sure. Look, I love that scene. How'd you all feel about that, Maddie and Abby? Were you big fans of that scene? Do you think it holds up with the other ones that we've mentioned? Maddie? Okay. Maddie, anything you want to add?
No, I thought it was great. It was very different from the other fights because this was just a plain slaughter.
Yes, definitely. The slaughter and the physicality of it are definitely the things that make it a lot different than the other ones. Okay, so final scene, unless anyone wants to bring anything up, which of course you can. The last one is the ending, right? So we've talked about the Trevor fake out, we've talked about the Sypha, the pregnancy, we talked about the village, all that other stuff. But one of the other big parts of this ending was what happened with Dracula and his wife, whose name I'm forgetting for some reason. Dracula and Lisa actually coming back to life, and them just going to the local, motel in the medieval ages, like, hey, let's just chill here and start anew, kind of thing. How'd you all feel about that? Because that's definitely something I know I wasn't expecting. So what'd you think?
It almost felt like a Marvel. We're always going to go back to Marvel now, but it's like a Marvel after credit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It felt like I was like, don't leave the theater just yet. Which I thought was super fun. I mean, I feel like the first, if I'm remembering correctly, the first scene is Lisa knocking on Vlad's door, and he's, she's this young maiden, and there's just this beautiful kind of tragic romance, which is so sweet and so, just like Gothic literature.
Right.
So much homage to that. The Heathcliffs and Austenite heroes. But he just like, I loved the ending. I did. It didn't make sense. And I liked that they acknowledge that they don't know how they're there, because I think that some of the dialogue, they're like, how did that happen?
Right.
And they're like, I don't know. They're like, the audience is like, I don't know either. And then they also mentioned Alucard, which I'm glad, because if they didn't say anything about their child together, I would have been like, okay, parents, get your stuff in gear. But they were like, we want him to live his own life. Like, we've already, I don't want to say burdened him, but like, we've impacted him so much already.
Yeah.
That it's time to step back. So I thought that was nice too. I don't think it was necessary, honestly, but I think it was a tip to the fans. I think that was pure fandom right there, where they knew their fandom and what they wanted and what the fan art was going to be and the cosplays were going to be and the fan fiction. And they said, we'll give you a treat as a treat. There you go.
And let's be honest. No matter how many times you kill Dracula in the Castlevania games, he always comes back anyway. So it makes sense, at least from that sense. But Maddie and Vince, how do you all feel about that ending and the reveal of Dracula and Lisa?
I mean, like, it was kind of weird because I was like, what are they gonna do about the future, right? So it's just like the whole franchise of the game is like Dracula just keeps going back, but that's only because of the essence of his hate and like evil, right? And he's just like, I hate humans, blah blah. I'm gonna keep haunting this world until forever and eternity, right? And I'm just like, Dracula had his piece with Lisa, and I'm just like, so what happens next? Especially with the future of like the Belmonts, if it's gonna be his son, right? I was just like, wouldn't Dracula still be alive, right? Wouldn't Lisa and Dracula still be alive because vampires just live longer, right? And it's just like, okay, so like, what's next? Death is gone, you know. That's like another 1,000 years till he revives, right? So like, I'm really curious of just like, it was cute. It was a cute moment, but I was just like, where are they gonna go now? Because that's all the plot is. That's all the plot of the Dracula games, or I mean the Castlevania games is Dracula just can't die and he just hates people. He hates humans. So I'm just like, where is this gonna go? Where is this gonna go? I have no idea. I'm very curious.
And I'm sure they did that on purpose because they want you to want more kind of thing. But go ahead, Maddie.
I was just gonna say, I hope they don't use Lisa as a vehicle for his motivations again.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I hope so too.
That would be very sad.
Imagine getting staked a second time.
Why didn't you learn? Yeah, I think I'm still a little torn about them being like, nah, we're not gonna let Alucard know about us being alive.
We're gonna abandon our child.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, they have a whole bunch of time ahead of them. They can change their minds, you know.
Exactly.
You know, Dracula's just immortal, so he can
Is she
decide
immortal?
Well, she's been revived, so like, who knows, right? That's like the odd part. I also thought it was a nice little touch too, where I think they're going to the inn or whatever. And he was like, maybe I should be the one who gets the room instead of you. Dracula with like his talons on his hands and his fangs, like it was like, that's a good idea. That was a good touch because I'm sure they've been like, hey man, like what happened to your teeth?
Yeah. He's like, it's gonna take a while getting to used to the name Vlad.
Yeah.
She's like, Vlad, good morning. Oh, you're talking to me? Like, I'm sure that's gonna happen at some point. All right, but before we get to the closing thoughts, let's just talk about two things. Especially, I know we've talked a lot about the themes in this show, and I feel like compared to say some of the other things that we discuss on the podcast that are a bit more shallow, like let's say Godzilla vs. Kong, which doesn't really have any themes. I'm sure that the filmmakers all behind this all had an intent of what they wanted to say with this show, and putting that out there, did you all feel like they did a good job of that, of saying what they wanted to say? Or do you feel like there was a bit more that could have been done there, or even like a debate about what the theme itself is? Like, tell me a little bit about that. How'd you all feel?
Who is the monster and who is the man? That was like playing on my head and repeat. Yeah. But that's the core of what I think the show revolves around, and it takes this very, as we said, basic idea within the games of like evil, hero, weapon, kill, go, and goes a lot deeper. I think even into the lore of a monster and what does that mean in a history. Like a history context and a society context, like what is like this world of is Wakalia? Am I saying
Wallachia? Something like that. Yeah.
My dyslexia does not like it. Yeah, Wallachia. And what does that mean? And is it, I think, 14th or 15th centuries of monster with human in society together? And what does that look like? It's really bloody and it's really gross. And I think, but that's also again a metaphor for human nature, as we know, are these aspects of human nature, because a vampire is the antithesis of what it is to be human.
Right.
They drink blood. that is what fuels humans, and that's what keeps them alive or
Right.
undead. So they're this creepy creature, and to break that down, which Vlad and Alucard are supposed to do, or we're supposed to, as the audience, to break them down.
Right.
I think it just does a really great job of that. And me and you have talked privately about this. I think the iconography of this Eastern European, extremely Catholic, Gothic world, holy water, silver crosses, it just is so epic on scale.
Right.
And they do it such justice. And they explore it pretty fully, and I think you don't always see that done with such respect, honestly, because it's like Middle Ages, gross, and it's dark and gross, but it's also treated as it's a mythic kind of epic world. The world building of the landscapes, I think, and of also a lot of, again, iconography is the best word, I just think is so well done.
Beautifully said. Maddie or Vince, how do you all feel about the general question of the themes and whatnot and how it's presented?
Yeah, I agree with Abby. I think in most shows, any form of media where it shows humans alongside non-humans, it's inevitably going to be about what does it mean to be human?
Right.
Although I think, weirdly enough, the thing that represented that the most in this show was with Isaac and the
night creatures.
What are they called? The night creatures.
Right.
And them being
and the one philosopher fly. We keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, well, why are we just rebuilding this house? We're meant to do this. And they're like, well, do you have to? Are you you were created for this? Would that mean you have to do it? I thought that was super interesting. I think other themes are also just as cheesy as it is, the power of love, which can be absolutely destructive, horrifying force, as with Dracula or a lot of the other characters, with wherever, Isaac's backstory as well.
Yes.
And then there's also the positive forces with Alucard and the main trio. So I think it dealt with them well enough. Yeah. Accomplished its goal.
Well said. Vince?
Yeah, I kind of agree with both Maddie and Abby. They've hit the nail on the head. Where it's just you really, what Adam and Sam Dietz, who are the directors, have done to this show has given pretty much all the love to a 20-year franchise. That's so difficult to do because that's a whole plethora and generation of fans who have grown up and who are also getting introduced now into the production and IP of Castlevania in itself, right? And it's unfortunate that Konami kind of dropped the ball on being a developer, and now makes pachinko machines. Igarashi moved on to making his own indie game
Bloodstained.
Castlevania, but it's great to see there's a love and homage and respect to such a long-lasting IP out there, where it's just there's so many times where I feel the Western directors and production often disrespects a lot of IP Eastern philosophy IPs. Again, going back to our jokes of Dragon Ball Evolution, Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Death Note, yeah.
What else? What else? There's just a whole plethora of Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
And just dropping balls all the time, and it's just it's so refreshing to see it's done justice, and then it continue on and become what it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. I think kind of how I feel is a sort of an amalgamation of all the three, because it is a franchise, right? It is a franchise that has been around since the 80s, since the revolution that started with the NES. But at the same time, these characters, your Draculas, and kind of just the archetypes around them have been with us for so long, right? And and something that Abby kind of said, right? Like the whole idea of this whole monster or who is the actual monster, right? Like that's a time and honor tradition in the gothic horror kind of genre, right? That's the core of what books like Frankenstein and Dracula are really about. And I think it's amazing that a show like this that had to juggle so many things, whether it be the homage to the fans, whether it be the homage to the characters and stories themselves, where they come from, as well as just the challenge that comes from translating those things to a modern audience on a platform like Netflix, right? To me, it shows a dedication of to the craft and also a love for the material, and that's reflected in what the final product looks like. And kind of going off of what Maddie said as well, what I love about the show so much is the characters and kind of the how they all of them or some don't, I should say, Lenore, kind of talk about or they exemplify about how you can choose what you want to do, right? That there is a choice, and that, like, you are not, when you're born, you're not put in this preset box, or you are not what someone else tells you, right? You can choose, and I think obviously that's a very powerful message, but it's certainly not one that I expected to get from a show like Castlevania, that's so steeped in tradition. So that was something that I was really, really happy about. All right. Unless there's anything else that any of you want to talk about, I think it's time for us to go to our closing thoughts and final ratings. If there's nothing else, then we can start off with Abby.
I don't know if this is a rating, but I've told multiple people in this group this. I do think unless a series comes along to challenge me, I say, like, I am the final boss.
Right.
This is my favorite games to other media adaptation, like TV or film.
Right.
I cannot think of anything else. I know we've got what is the Uncharted movie in development. You got Last of Us in development. You got Nintendo potentially, maybe someday. But right now, this is the one to beat. I just think it's epic. It's fun. It gets new fans into the franchise, which is also what a really good piece of media should do.
Yes.
If you have a transmedia property, it should be able to get them interested in other aspects of it, which this, again, nails. So I watch it if you haven't. And I say, as someone who really doesn't love horror, but really likes history and magic and romance, this also made me, and, action adventure, this also made me very happy. You don't have to be a huge horror person to get in.
Absolutely. Maddie, closing thoughts and final rating?
I totally agree with Abby. I think this is the video game like TV series or movie to beat at the moment. My hope is that something will come along that does, because if people see the amazing success that this show has, I'm hoping that more people do things like it and do it well. Funny enough, this watching Castlevania just makes me want to play D&D a lot.
True.
So I think that's another side benefit.
Right.
But overall, my rating, I don't know what scale we do it, but my rating is double thumbs up.
Whatever skill you want,
up.
Maddie. Okay, double thumbs up it is.
Yep, I don't know where that scales on the rest of the thumbs. Are there more thumbs? Are there less thumbs? Who knows? But I only have 2 thumbs to give, and I'm giving them.
We'll answer that question on the next podcast. So stay tuned. Vince, how about you? And I'm sure, given your background, you have a lot of thoughts on this and things that you want to say.
Yeah. To me, what Powerhouse Animation has done is set pretty much a precedence for transmedia animation and just adaptations in general. It's wild to see a generation I pretty much grew up with on YouTube that's just we all started out animating in our DS's, with Flipnote, growing up to using now these professional
programs and equipment.
and having a pipeline and an opportunity for many people in this rep generation of animators to now have their stuff professionally done and given the opportunity to be we can all say you don't need art school. You could just do it yourself with the love of anime in your mind if you can just keep up with the pace. And like the amount of love that like goes into that is like difficult, right? Because like Powerhouse Animation has just like done so much. I don't know if they even really realize it for like the animation community in itself, where it's just like things don't have to be like Disney, things don't have to be just good, things can be bad and crude and bloody and gory, and like we're up to the point where it's just like, you know, everyone grows up, you know, there are some bad things, and it's just like I think there's nothing wrong with showing the grit that like Hollywood puts out in their live action, where it's just like there's this weird stigma these days where it's just like animation still viewed just for children, right? And Powerhouse Animation has just put out there, that was like no, we're just putting it all in. We're putting all our chips down, all the cards down. It's like we'll gamble with it, and Netflix has given them the opportunity of just like changing the whole scene in just like one go, you know. And like I agree with everyone else, where it's just like I haven't seen anything like it done. The amount of love that has been put into a medium that has been done respectfully for all the love that it's been given to as a franchise. I haven't seen that done like here at all. I can't think of anything. Maybe like Legend of Korra, maybe.
Sure.
But that's still part of the same director, same franchise. But I'm just like I can't think of anything else with the video game adaptation, except for like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Definitely go check that out. The
Right.
new one, The Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Mhm.
amazing. Everything in the animation, amazing. Check that out. But I think Sam and Adam Dietz have definitely given an opportunity for like a lot of us in the animation community to like strive for what they do. Shout outs to them, man. Especially their whole team too, pushing with like this difficult production.
Snaps.
I can tell like a lot of it, like you can tell like trying to like balance that out with COVID. Like a lot of these freelance animators too, like it's nuts. But yeah, my rating's probably 9.5 out of 10.
Amazing.
Adam,
before you give your rating, can I ask everyone a question?
Sure.
If there was a series to be turned into an amazing animation next, or not a series, a game, what would you guys want to see?
Oh, good lord. God.
Wait, animation to game?
No,
game to animation.
Video game to animation.
A video game to animation. Oh.
Yeah. What's the next
animation?
Castlevania?
It would have to be animation. Could it be like a live Okay.
That's
the
hard.
Nier series. For me, I love the Nier series to death, and I was just like, it's already gotten 2 video games, a playwright, a book. What hasn't this man Yoko Taro done? An MMO spin-off, right, with one of its dungeons. Yeah. If you play Final Fantasy XIV, there's several dungeons in the main storyline that now include the Nier series.
Oh shit, no way.
Yeah, it's kind of nutty how they've all tied it in together with the series. And it's all this one big bubble universe, and I'm just like, I want more. Give me an anime. Give this man an anime.
I see Adam looking around.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking for inspiration. I'm like, I don't know what to choose. Abby, you go.
I'll say it. I've thought for a while that Overwatch would be a great Saturday morning cartoon. I think that in the depths of my bones, that if anyone ever hears this and they need someone to be a voiceover producer, I would do that. But I just the nature of the narratives we already had from the little cinematics they've given us are Pixar level quality, and I will compliment Blizzard to the cows come home because I think they're so well done. But I see the potential. I see the plot lines. I see them talking about the war and characters having fun together. It's all there. It's so all there already.
Honestly, I was convinced you were going to say The Legend of Zelda.
Really? As an animated...
Zelda's so hard because Link doesn't talk.
I agree.
It's so difficult to do.
I agree. I have a whole thing.
Link needs to talk.
That's true.
It's hard to pull off though if your protagonist and hero doesn't talk.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
What's your choice, Maddie?
I asked this question without having an answer. Honestly, I think I would actually really like. I haven't. Full disclosure. I haven't actually played the Dark Souls series or anything.
Right.
But I think Dark Souls would be really cool.
Ooh,
I think that'd be very cool, especially the influences it has from like Lovecraft and whatnot would be something that would be cool to see just in the modern setting. Yeah. For me, I think this is a bit of a dark horse pick because we've been talking a lot about stuff that's like, back in the past, but one of my favorite series ever is Deus Ex, and because of how it deals with kind of like the future and like the philosophy of just like transhumanism and whatnot. I think being able to translate kind of like the things it brings up in a science fiction setting and also just be able to show that world to a wider audience would be very, very cool. I don't think it'd ever be possible because those games are so dense, but if they can pull it off, I would love to see it. And of course, in this scenario, we're talking about the actual outcome is really good. So I'll go with Deus Ex on that one.
Cool.
Yeah. So for my final rating on Castlevania, one thing that I've kind of been thinking about as we've all been talking about is like, in the age that we're in right now, the modern mythology is traditionally around superheroes, right? We talk about the DC pantheon, we talk about the Marvel pantheon, and even some other ones like Image and Valiant, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but we're constantly bombarded with those kind of properties that it feels good to not only have a video game property kind of stand on its own and kind of show that it can stand toe to toe with those people, but also these timeless characters that we talk about. We always talk about how Batman or Spider-Man or whoever is timeless, but so is Dracula, and so are the other people in that kind of pantheon. And I'm really happy to see a series like not Dracula, like Castlevania, be so successful and to be able to remind people about these characters and that, hey, it's not like just those 2-hour long movies from the 90s. These are these are very, very cool characters that also can be shown in a interesting and also amazing way, like with those action scenes. So I'm really, really happy to see Castlevania kind of touch on that and bring that to the world. Not perfect for sure, but any frame that you see of the show, you can see the amount of love, the amount of passion that went into it. And I know Vince has already touched on it, but obviously big shout outs to everyone who worked on this project. I can't imagine the amount of work that you had to put in, the amount of coordination it would take to create a project like this and bring it to life. I'm sure there was a lot of pressure to kind of make sure that you did the franchise and the fans justice. I'm sure there's a lot of pressure to not suck like every single other video game to media adaptation. But you all nailed it and you knocked it out of the park. So it's a full price for me. Absolutely. Highly recommend it. Can't wait to see not only the next Castlevania series they do, but also the new He-Man series that they're working on. I'm really hopeful for that. So amazing. Go check it out. It's on Netflix. Like, what are you doing? Just don't even.
French Revolution, though, for the sequel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who knows where that's going to go. But definitely make sure that you go check it out. All right, before we all go, as usual, shout outs. Anything you want to say? Abby, we'll start with you.
I am ABBY_Sherlock on all social media platforms. Thank you so much for having me, Adam. I always have such a great time here.
Always a pleasure having you on. Always an honor. Maddie, this is your first time on, so any shout outs you want to give or, social handles you want to shout out?
Honored to make my podcast debut here with you guys.
I'm sure you'll come back for more, Maddie. Don't worry. I'm sure you will.
This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed chatting with you all, and I want to hear that abandoned cement factory thing later.
She said it on there. The best part is that we can talk about this abandoned cement factory story for the rest of the podcast episodes and never actually explain what it is. But sorry, keep going, Maddie.
I'm not on many social media, just Twitter. So my Twitter handle is @MadsGray, MadsGray. So yeah.
Also play the newly released game, please.
Ew.
Give it a shot.
Play Industries of Titan.
Yeah. Vince, what you want to say, man?
I'm still the same with all my social handles. Follow me on VLabs, VLLABS. I'm starting a Twitch stream now with like art and video games. So
following you right now.
Me. And I don't know. I don't have a set schedule, so whenever I'm on, I'm on. But yeah, that's it.
I'll say this too, since Vince just went. Like, I know he talked a lot about how he finds so much of what the studio did behind Castlevania inspirational. Dude, like with the amount of work that you kind of put in, I'm sure you'll find yourself in one of those positions very, very soon.
I hope, man. I mean, they're hiring.
Hey, man, listen.
The
Sometimes you just
Powerhouse
gotta apply.
Studios are hiring. Shout out to
Sometimes you
anyone
just gotta apply.
who wants to flex.
Yeah, man. So, of course, thank all of you for coming on and taking 2 hours out of your night to talk with me. I love doing this, and even if we never release any of it, I'd still love to just hop on a call and talk with all of you. And of course, for anyone who did take the time to listen and/or watch this on YouTube, big shout outs to you. Of course, thank you so much for listening and watching. You could be doing anything else in the world, but you chose to be with us, and that means a lot. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_Bomb with 2 M's. I'm on other sites, but I don't really use them. So just follow me there. We're going to be doing more reviews. I'm sure there's always more things that we could talk about. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, take care of yourselves and keep on being awesome. All right. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace.